If someone were to be incredibly biased about a technology, you would expect them to pick an aspect of that technology or more than one aspect and not be balanced about it, not to take a risk-based approach, not to consider the benefit versus the cost. And an example would be for somebody to say, I'm going to oppose renewable energy because it makes toxic waste. It creates heavy metals and it makes acids and so forth because of all the mining and milling. And that's all fine and good to say that you don't like that kind of waste, but if you don't look at a balanced approach and realize that basically all the technology that we use creates waste, toxic waste, heavy metal waste. If you're using a phone or a computer right now, that manufacturing created a lot of waste. And the question is all right, are we dealing with the waste appropriately? And is the impact, the environmental impact and the human impact, is that worth the benefit that we get for making these things, for whatever it is that we're doing to control nature to make it do what we want? And a case in point that I'd like to emphasize for nuclear technology is kind of summed up in this comment right here. If you look at this person says, Fukushima is polluting the Pacific food source and America's West Coast forever. I'll do other videos on nuclear proliferation, but the media has made it seem as though the Fukushima water is just a horrible thing, that it's not an acceptable consequence of having electricity produced from nuclear energy. And this is an extreme case of unbalanced risk analysis. Now, let me tell you why. The total amount of activity that's being dumped into the ocean is 20 curies. And I use the word dump because 20 curies is not a lot when it comes to tritium. And you can spin the numbers and say, well, 20 curies, that's actually 20 million microcuries, or do something ridiculous like that. This is about 20 curies. And the reason why that's some really overt hype and fear-mongering is because any nuclear power reactor, like China is complaining about it because it's going in their food source, any standard modern light water reactor will release into the environment hundreds of curies per year. That Fukushima water is about 20 curies. It's negligible. That's why the experts approved it. It's not consequential. It's negligible. And you might think, well, who still wants 20 curies in the water? That's already there. The radioactivity that's being released is tritium. Tritium is a naturally occurring radionuclide. It's created in the same process that carbon-14 is created, spallation in the upper atmosphere from galactic cosmic rays and the solar wind. You get tritium being produced at 2.5 million curies per year. 2.5 million curies per year naturally being created, so that the current content, the asymptotic, the value, the steady state level of tritium in our environment is about 43 million curies. It's got about a 12-year half-life. And so as it's being created at about the same rate that it's decaying, just from natural sources. And so when you talk about tens of curies or hundreds of curies, it's negligible. And it always comes back to risk versus reward. If you ever say, I want the risk to be zero, then you're not going to have that technology. If you want the risk from cell phones to be zero, you're not going to have cell phones. If you want the risk from clothing to be zero, you're not going to have clothing. But then what happens is the risk of not having that, like not having electricity, becomes far worse. That just becomes horrific. To take away cell phones, or well, maybe not so horrific with cell phones, but it would be really bad. I think we could all admit that. And so what's been going on with the Fukushima water has just been egregious hype, that people are getting afraid of something that is entirely trivial in terms of its consequence. So I hope that helps. I hope. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.